Hey, welcome back to Black Z Garage. What we're going to be working on tonight is the disc brake installation on our new Quick Performance rear end. As you can see, I got this one installed, but I had a few challenges along the way getting it to this point, so I thought I'd make a separate video about the brake system on the rear end. So what we'll do is we'll install the other side together and see what I had to go through. Hopefully you won't make the same mistake. So what I'll do is I'll grab the camera and show you what the deal is, and we'll get started. Okay, so I threw the original rear end up here so we could take a look at it, and I could explain to you just exactly where I went wrong on the brake system. Most basically, it's my fault. I assumed wrong, and you know what happens when you assume, so I made an ass on myself. So with that being said, my basic wrong assumption was concerning this bracket. This is a bracket you'll see on most GM cars that switch over to disc brakes, whether you buy a kit from Summit or Jegs or a lot of the other brake companies. They have a very basic bracket just like this, and it bolts right on to the 4-bolt bracket here on the end. Now where I went, so I broke the rear end, but my brake system was fine. So where I assumed wrong was if I just ordered a Quick Pro rear end with the right bracket on here, that I'd be able to bolt up my brakes and go. And that was not at all the case. So let me get the other camera and I'll do a close up here and I'll show you exactly why it doesn't work and what I did to try and get around it and fix it. Here's where I took a wrong turn with my thinking. Because I already had an aftermarket kit, I thought this bracket was going to work. I knew the original GM bracket wouldn't work, which is what this is, because it bolts on from the outside. So I knew that it wouldn't work with the rear end. But I thought because I had already had an aftermarket kit, which had a bracket that came and bolted from the inside, that I'd be all right. But I was wrong. So where I went wrong is here. You see where it necks down to the bracket in the bearing. Well, on the new Quick Performance rear end, it's very beefy and it actually bulks up here at the end. So I couldn't get the bracket all the way over. What I do have going for me though is the offset is the same. Basically the distance between here and here is the same. So if I can get this bracket up against the new rear end, I'll be all right. So that's what I'm going to try and do. Here is how I'm going to fix the problem on my car. I'm going to take the bracket that I already had and I'm going to put it in behind the machined end on the housing. I'm going to take some 3/8 bolts that are 2 inches long and I'm going to feed them through, 3 of them, so I line up all the bolt holes. And then I'm going to take a felt marker with a nice sharp end on it, and I'm going to draw around the areas that I need to grind off in order for this to fit. So once I get this done, I'll highlight the area and show you on another shot. This is what it looks like after I got the area blackened out. As you can see, we got about 3/16 worth in some places where we got to grind this out. So in order to get this fit, I'll be spending the next hour or so on the grinding wheel, and when I get close to getting it finished, we'll take another look at it. This is what it looks like half finished. I've got this side done. It's taken me about 20 minutes so far. I'll get the other side finished up and we'll see how it looks. So I got the bracket finished here to where it fits up nice against the rear end. But talking to Quick Performance today, it's going to be a while before my brake kit comes in. So I got to do the best I can with what I have. So that's why I decided to upgrade to the larger Wilwood stock size brakes. Alright, so here's Wilwood kit 14012097 in red. This is a kit we're going to be using. It's basically a stock replacement caliper for the original. We're going to use that until the larger kit I ordered comes in. So let's open this up and see what we got. Stickers, always good. So we got calipers and brake pads. And you can see this is pretty much a direct replacement for this one. There's no parking brake on this one. I didn't worry about it since the better kit that I ordered will have a parking brake, so I didn't bother to spend the money. I can go a month or two without it. But so we'll see how that looks. Brakes. Now, as you can see, there's quite a bit more meat here than there is on this one. So for the brake bracket, what that means is these two green corners right here, the caliper hits that and won't go flat up against where it's supposed to be. So I need to grind these two areas down to match this here, and that's what I'm going to work on next. Okay, so after about 5 minutes, 10 minutes, I got these ground down nice. So I'll go ahead and get ready to mount this on the other side of the axle. Okay, so we're at the point where we're ready to put on this little backing plate here, and I'm putting on my brake caliper bracket. Good idea. Quick Performance on their website has a couple of tech pages you ought to download. If you're just bolting on this bracket without bolting on a brake bracket, there's a couple pictures here of exactly what to do and what not to do. Basically, if you're just bolting this on, they want you to take a lock washer and fill up a little bit of the extra space between the bearing and the back of the flange so you don't bend it around and bend this flange too much. So if all you're doing is bolting this on, put a bolt through, put the washer here. I got lock washers. I ground it down just a little bit so it fit in on the tight side by the bearing, no problem. But I am also putting on the brake bracket. So that's what I'm going to do now. But definitely download these couple pages here, and it also explains exactly how I cut the bracket out to make it fit. They do the exact same thing here in this paragraph. So take a look at those. All right, so I think we're ready to get this bracket on here and get the brakes put on. So I got my bracket. I'll pull it on from the back, and for through the bracket, I've got 3 inch and 3/4 bolts, which I shaved down one flat side for up against the axle. So I'll put those through. And then I have one bolt that's 1.5 inches that'll go through the hole the bracket doesn't use. Flat side against the axle. Okay. All right, now remember in the directions it said to use lock washers, one on each corner. I flattened mine out just a little bit so it'd have room up against the bearing. So I'll put those on next. Okay, ready for the locking plate to go down and over the bolts. Perfect, okay. All right, I'm gonna spin these lock nuts down and then we will torque them. All right, I got them snug. The next thing to do is we got to torque them to 35 foot-pounds. I set the torque wrench at 35 pounds. In case you hadn't noticed yet, there's a big hole in the axle right here. That is so you can put the torque wrench in here. All right, I'll go the opposite corner. One more. All right, it is on. I'm gonna throw the rotor on next, and I usually like to take 2 nuts and tighten it down so it's nice and flat. Especially when it's not 100% sure how it's gonna come out. All right, I got the rotor nice and tight, so now I'm ready to put the caliper on. Okay, so I got the caliper, it's ready to go on. These nice Wilwood calipers have O-rings both in the little end and on the big end. So make sure you lube them up. And then also the slide collars, make sure they're lubed up good. And I go ahead and press them in there to start with. All right, so I'll grab the plate on this side and I will slide it into place. Angle. I've got the pin that's ready to slide in, so I got the inside pad. I'll bring it down and I'll slide this bolt through and get it started, and then I'll put the upper bolt in. Okay, let's take a socket and tighten them up. Okay, check them one last time, make sure they're snug. Okay, those are in. Well, I've got everything bolted up. This is bolted down. The everything's torqued. This is on tight. Brake pad's up, right up against it, but I'm not getting too much resistance. That's good. So everything looks good. So I'm on to the brake lines now. As you see, I got to connect this up. So that's what I will work on next. Okay, so we're working on the brakes, and I'm back over here on the finished side. I'm going to reuse the brake lines that I had because they are stainless steel. They have the nice protective covering over top of them. They're in good shape. They just need re-bent around and fixed a little bit. So as you can see, I've got it to where I've got it bolted into the caliper here. So I got it bolted down, and basically I got this worm clamp here holding it pretty good right here. So basically I won't be tugging on it while I'm working on the other side. So I'll work on the other side and I'll get it connected up, and then I'll slowly just play with it and get it molded up against the new rear end as best as I can. So here's one of the challenges with doing the brake system on the new rear end. On the original car, my Camaro, the brake line comes down here, and then there's a T-block here, and one line goes this way and one line goes that way. Well, the T-block bolts onto this bracket here. Well, the new rear end does not have this bracket, and with my extra brace on the back, the clamps that you can get kind of slide off. So I want to get a good solid base. So what I'm going to work on is see if I can either drill out or break off this bracket, and then I'll take it over and weld it onto the new rear end. Alright, so it wasn't nothing getting this bracket off. Basically what I did is I just drilled it out with a 3/16 on the 3 holes, and I took this little chisel like this, a couple whacks, and it popped right off. So I cleaned it up a little bit, and I'll end up welding this onto the other rear end. So I'm under the car finishing up the brakes. I've got the brake lines clamped down with a worm clamp on each side. I've carefully worked the lines across not to bend them up, and I even put another bracket here at the top of the rear end. So now the bracket I took off the old rear end, I've got it mounted on the T, and I have marked where I'm going to grind and weld it. I won't get it done today, but you guys get the idea. So I'm excited. I'm almost done. I'm ready to get this quick performance rear end out and tear it up a little bit. So our next video probably be on taking the car out.